He invited his broke ex-wife to his wedding, just to disgrace her in front of all Lagos. He wanted her to sit there, watch him marry another woman, and feel the pain he thought she deserved. His bride laughed, his mother approved, his friends were ready to mock her, but what none of them knew was that the woman they called a failure was already on her way, and she was not coming alone. Because before that wedding could begin, a helicopter would land, and the truth inside it would destroy everything. Stay till the end. Lagos had not seen this kind of society wedding in a long time. From Lekki to Victoria Island, people were already talking, blogs were posting, influencers were tagging the location. Luxury cars lined the beachfront venue. Cameras flashed. Decorators rushed around with flowers worth more than some people's rent. It was loud, it was glamorous, it was expensive, and in the center of it all stood Chinedu Okafor, young, rich, proud, a tech billionaire with a cold smile and a heart full of ego. He adjusted his cufflinks and looked around the hall like a man who had finally conquered the world. His friends stood near him, laughing, drinking, praising him. One of them smirked and asked, "So, is it true? You actually invited your ex-wife?" Chinedu smiled, not with warmth, with wicked satisfaction. "Yes," he said, "I want her to see what she lost." The men burst into laughter. Another one added, "Ah, that one will cry today." Chinedu did not stop them. In fact, he enjoyed it. He wanted Amaka there. He wanted her seated among strangers, watching him marry another woman in front of cameras and applause. He wanted her to look small. He wanted her to feel regret. He wanted her to remember the life she no longer had. That was the plan. And standing a few steps away was the bride-to-be, Beverly Akinyemi, beautiful, flashy, and cruel in a polished way. She had just finished fitting her second reception dress when she heard Chinedu's friends talking. Her eyes lit up. "You invited Amaka?" she said with a sharp laugh. "Good. Let her come and cry with her 2 eyes. Let her see the kind of woman you deserve now." She tossed her hair and smiled at herself in the mirror. To Beverly, this was not enough. She did not just want to marry Chinedu. She wanted to win publicly. And Chinedu's mother, Mrs. Ngozi Okafor, was even worse. When she heard the news, she nodded with cold approval. "She deserves it," she said. "After all the shame she brought to this family, let her come and witness what a real wedding looks like." Then she turned to the event planner and said, "Make sure there is no confusion when she arrives. I want her to sit where she can see everything clearly." Every word was deliberate. Every word was wicked. But far away from the noise of the venue, in a quiet, peaceful home, Amaka was living a very different morning. She was not surrounded by cameras. She was surrounded by silence, until a courier arrived. He handed her a cream-colored envelope with gold edges. Her name was written neatly across the front. Amaka frowned and opened it slowly. Inside was a wedding invitation. Chinedu Okafor and Beverly Akinyemi. Her fingers trembled, then a small folded note slipped out. She opened it, and her face changed. It read, "Come and witness what you lost." Amaka sat down immediately. Her chest tightened. She held the card in one hand and pressed the other against her heart. For a moment she could not breathe. The old pain returned all at once, the insults, the rejection, the shame. But she refused to cry, not in front of her children. Just then, her 3 little boys ran into the room, laughing softly, full of innocent energy. One of them looked up at her and asked, "Mummy, why are you sad?" Another touched her arm gently. Amaka forced a weak smile. "It's nothing, my loves," she whispered, but it was not nothing. She looked down at the invitation again. Then she closed her eyes and bowed her head. Quietly she prayed, "God, give me strength." When she opened her eyes, she picked up her phone and called the one person who had stood by her when her world fell apart. "Chief Adenike," she said, her voice shaking, "they want to shame me." And that was the day everything began. Amaka did not sleep that night. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, while the wedding invitation sat on the table like an insult that refused to leave her house. The note kept echoing in her mind. "Come and witness what you lost." Lost? Was that what Chinedu thought? That she had lost? No. What Amaka lost was peace. What she lost was trust. What she lost was the version of Chinedu she once prayed for. Because there was a time when Chinedu Okafor was not this man. There was a time when he was humble. There was a time when he needed her. Stay till the end. Because the marriage did not die in one day. It died slowly. And it died in public. Years earlier, before the money, before the luxury cars, before the social media noise, Chinedu and Amaka lived in a small rented apartment in Surulere. The walls were plain. The kitchen was tiny. The power went off more times than they could count. But in those days, they still laughed together. They still prayed together. They still believed in each other. When Chinedu's business was barely surviving, it was Amaka who stood like a pillar beside him. She woke early to pack his meals. She stayed up late, helping him organize invoices. She listened when investors rejected him, and when he almost gave up, she held his hands and told him, "God has not forgotten you." Chinedu used to look at her with gratitude then. Used to. One difficult month, when rent was due and his business account was empty, Amaka did something nobody asked her to do. She took off the small gold necklace her late father had given her, then her earrings, then her wedding bangles. She sold them quietly, and when she handed Chinedu the money, he stared at her in shock. "Amaka, where did you get this?" She smiled, even though it hurt. "Your dream is my dream," she said. "We will build together." That day, Chinedu hugged her tightly. That day, he called her his blessing. But blessings are often forgotten when pride enters the room. As Chinedu's business started growing, his mother, Mrs. Ngozi, became bolder. She no longer hid her dislike. She would look Amaka up and down and hiss, "This your village behavior will embarrass my son one day." Sometimes she spoke in front of visitors, sometimes in front of Chinedu, and each time Amaka stayed quiet. Then came Beverly. She entered Chinedu's world at a high-profile business launch in Victoria Island. Loud perfume, loud laughter, expensive clothes. She knew how to speak to powerful men and make them feel bigger than they were, and she noticed immediately that Chinedu was rising fast, so she moved closer. At first, it was innocent conversation, then compliments, then late-night calls about business ideas, then poison. "Your wife is too simple for your level now." Successful men need polished women beside them. "Be honest, Chinedu. Does she really fit your future?" Those words entered his ears little by little. And then one Sunday, everything changed. It was Thanksgiving service. The church was full. Choir singing, families smiling, people dressed in bright colors. Amaka wore her best lace and sat quietly beside her husband, hoping for peace. But peace never came. When testimony time opened, Mrs. Ngozi stood up and collected the microphone. At first, Amaka thought nothing of it. Then the older woman turned and pointed at her. "This woman," she said sharply, "has delayed my son's joy. Since he married her, no child, nothing. She is barren, and she has brought shame into this family." The church froze. The choir stopped moving. Whispers spread like fire. Amaka's body went cold. Her lips parted, but no words came out. She turned to Chinedu, waiting, begging, praying he would stand up and stop it. But he did not. He just sat there, silent, embarrassed, as if he was ashamed to be seen beside her. And in that moment, Amaka felt something break inside her. Not her heart, something deeper, her safety, her dignity, her marriage. When they got into the car, Amaka's tears would not stop. "Why?" she cried. "Why didn't you protect me?" Chinedu looked out the window and said the words that haunted her for years. "Maybe my mother is right." That night, Amaka knelt beside her bed, shaking, with tears soaking her hands, and with the little strength she had left, she whispered, "God, please don't let shame swallow me." After that night, nothing in the house felt the same. The walls were the same, the furniture was the same, the prayers were the same, but the love was gone. Or maybe worse, the love was still there only on one side, because Amaka still tried, she still cooked, she still greeted, she still waited for Chinedu to come back to himself. But Chinedu had changed. He became colder, shorter, harder. The man who once held her hand now spoke to her like she was a burden. The man who once called her his blessing now looked at her like she was bad luck. And Beverly was always there, not inside the house, but inside the marriage. Stay till the end. Because the day Chinedu ended, that marriage was the same day he unknowingly abandoned his own children. One evening, the air in the house felt unusually heavy. Amaka had just finished arranging dinner when she heard the front door open. Chinedu walked in, wearing a dark suit, his face unreadable, a brown envelope in his hand. He did not greet her. He did not sit down. He placed the envelope on the table between them. "What is this?" Amaka asked softly. Chinedu's voice was flat. "Sign it." Her fingers shook as she opened it. Divorce papers. For a second, the room spun. Amaka looked up at him as if she had misheard heaven. "Chinedu, what is this?" "I'm done," he said. "I can't keep living like this." Amaka's lips trembled. "Living like what? We are husband and wife. We can fix this." But Chinedu's face did not move. Instead, he said the cruelest thing he had ever said to her. "Your prayers are empty, and your womb is empty." Amaka stepped back as if he had slapped her. The words hit her chest like stones. She wanted to scream. She wanted to remind him of every sacrifice, every prayer, every night she stayed awake believing in him. Instead, tears filled her eyes. "Please," she whispered, "don't do this." That was when she saw movement behind him. Beverly, standing near the door, silent, elegant, smiling. She said nothing, but her eyes said enough. She had won. Amaka turned back to Chinedu, with pain all over her face. "There is something I need to tell you," she said, holding her stomach without thinking. But fear blocked her voice. The words would not come. Before she could speak again, Mrs. Ngozi walked in like she had been waiting for this moment all her life. "Still standing there?" she snapped. "Pack her things. Let her leave." Amaka stared at her in disbelief. "Mama, please." "Don't call me that," Mrs. Ngozi barked. "You have brought enough disgrace." Then with shocking coldness, she dragged Amaka's suitcase from the hallway and pushed it toward the door. At that exact moment, thunder rumbled outside. Then rain began to fall. Heavy rain, cold rain, cruel rain. The kind of rain that makes sadness feel even louder. Amaka stood frozen as the front door opened and the security light flashed across the wet compound. "Leave this house today," Chinedu said. "I'm tired." Amaka's tears mixed with panic now. She placed a hand over her belly again. She wanted to tell him. She wanted to say it clearly. "I'm pregnant." But Beverly folded her arms. Mrs. Ngozi pointed outside, and Chinedu looked away. The gate was opened, then shut. Amaka was out. She stood in the rain, soaked within seconds, clutching her suitcase with one hand and her stomach with the other. Her body trembled. Her chest tightened. Her legs began to weaken. She knocked once. No answer. She called Chinedu's name once. No answer. Then her knees gave way. She collapsed near the gate, not violently, just suddenly, like her body had finally surrendered to everything her heart had been carrying. A passing stranger saw her and rushed forward. "Madam! Madam!" He helped her into a kiki and took her to the nearest clinic. Hours later, Amaka opened her eyes under soft hospital lights. A doctor stood beside her with gentle concern. "You need to stay calm," he said. "Stress is dangerous right now." Amaka swallowed hard. "Right now?" The doctor paused, then spoke carefully. "Madam, you are pregnant." Tears filled her eyes at once, but the next words shook her even more. "It's not one baby," he said. "It's 3. Triplets." Amaka covered her mouth and began to cry, not from fear alone, but from heartbreak, because the man who threw her out in the rain had just thrown away his own children, and through tears she whispered a promise into the silence. "My children will not suffer what I suffered." That night, the hospital room was quiet, too quiet, the kind of quiet that makes pain louder. Amaka lay still on the narrow bed, one hand resting gently on her stomach, the other wiping tears that refused to stop. The doctor's words kept ringing in her ears. 3 babies, 3 innocent lives, 3 little hearts growing inside a woman who had just been thrown away like she meant nothing. Stay till the end, because when people thought Amaka's story had ended, God was just starting a new chapter. The next few days were hard, very hard. Amaka left Lagos quietly and went to Ibadan, where a distant churchwoman helped her find a small room to stay in. It was not glamorous, it was not comfortable, but it was safe, and for the first time in a long time, safety mattered more than appearance. She kept to herself. She avoided questions. She avoided gossip. She avoided mirrors on some days, because even her own face looked like pain. Still, life had to move. So Amaka began doing what she could. She mixed small homemade skincare products with simple natural ingredients she had learned from her aunt years ago. She sold them little by little. Body butter, black soap, oils, nothing flashy, just enough to eat, just enough to survive. And every night she prayed, "God, I don't know how, but please help me carry these children." Then one evening, as she was returning from a small delivery, a wave of weakness hit her. Her hands shook, her breathing changed, fear gripped her chest. She sat down immediately. Her mind raced. "Not my babies! Please, God, not my babies!" She was rushed to a nearby clinic, where the nurses settled her and told her to rest. There was no blood, no violence, but the fear alone was enough to make her tremble. She lay there staring at the ceiling, exhausted, ashamed, and alone. Then her phone rang. Amaka's heart stopped for a second when she saw the name. Chinedu. Her fingers trembled as she answered. "Hello," she said weakly. For one foolish second, hope entered her heart. Maybe he had changed his mind. Maybe he had finally remembered she was his wife. Maybe he wanted to ask where she was. But Chinedu's voice came cold and casual. "I just got Beverly a new diamond ring," he said. "That woman knows how to stand beside a successful man." Amaka said nothing. Her throat tightened. Then he laughed softly and added, "That is what a real woman looks like, not someone who drags a man backward." The line went dead. Just like that. No concern, no apology, no mercy. Amaka slowly lowered the phone and stared ahead. Then the tears came. Not loud, not dramatic, just deep, silent tears rolling down the sides of her face into the pillow. "So I meant nothing," she whispered. That was the night something changed inside her. Not bitterness, not revenge, resolve. If Chinedu could throw her away, she would still live. If people could mock her, she would still rise. If her heart was broken, she would still protect the lives inside her. The next morning, the doctor on duty noticed her swollen eyes and quiet spirit. He did not rush her. He did not judge her. Instead, he sat down beside her and said gently, "You need support, not just medicine." That was how he told her about a maternal care foundation that helped vulnerable women. At first, Amaka hesitated. She was tired of trusting people, but she had no choice. And that decision changed everything. Because through that foundation, Amaka met Chief Mrs. Adenike Balogun, a powerful philanthropist, a respected businesswoman, a woman with wealth, influence, and a voice people listened to. But when she first saw Amaka, she did not see a burden. She saw pain. She saw dignity. She saw a woman trying not to break. Chief Adenike sat in front of her and asked only one question. "Who has been carrying this alone?" Amaka tried to answer, but her voice cracked. Then Chief Adenike reached for her hand and said words that made Amaka cry all over again. "You will not suffer alone again, not on my watch." Amaka bowed her head and sobbed, not because life was still hard, but because for the first time in a long time, kindness had found her again. And through tears, she whispered the only truth her heart could hold. "God remembered me." From that day, Amaka's life did not change overnight, but it changed steadily, and sometimes steady change is the kind that lasts. Chief Mrs. Adenike Balogun did not just give Amaka money and disappear, number. She gave her something far more powerful: protection, guidance, dignity. She moved Amaka into a safe, comfortable home in Ibadan, where she could rest without fear. She assigned a nurse to check on her. She made sure the doctors monitored the pregnancy carefully. She even told the staff one simple thing: treat her with respect. She has cried enough. And for the first time in many months, Amaka slept without fear in her chest. Stay till the end. Because the woman they called cursed was about to receive 3 blessings at once. Months later, on a calm morning filled with prayers and nervous tears, Amaka gave birth safely. 3 boys, 3 beautiful boys, healthy, tiny, precious. When the nurse placed them near her one after another, Amaka could not stop crying. She looked at their little faces and felt something she had not felt in a long time. Joy, pure joy. She kissed their foreheads and whispered, "You are loved, you are wanted, you are mine." She named them Obina, Somto, and Kelechi, and Chief Adenike, standing nearby with tears in her own eyes, smiled like a proud mother. "These boys came with destiny," she said. Life became busy after that, very busy. Amaka's days were no longer filled with shame. They were filled with bottles, lullabies, folded baby clothes, prayers before bedtime, and the sweet noise of little boys growing together. She was tired, yes, but it was a holy kind of tired, a meaningful tired. Every night she gathered the children close, laid her hands gently on their heads, and prayed over them. "God, let them grow in wisdom. Let them never know the pain I knew." And even as a mother of triplets, Amaka did not bury her future. Chief Adenike refused to let her. "You have more inside you than survival," she told her. "You must build." So she enrolled Amaka in business training, branding, product development, basic finance, customer relations, everything Amaka needed to turn her small homemade products into a real company. Amaka listened. Amaka learned. Amaka worked. She began refining her recipes. She improved her packaging. She developed a premium skincare and wellness line with natural ingredients and elegant branding. What started as a survival hustle slowly became a respected business. Soon, her products were entering spas in Ibadan, then Abuja, then high-end wellness lounges in Lagos. Quietly, without noise, Amaka rose, and through all of it, the triplets remained exactly what they were meant to be: children, safe, innocent, joyful. They held her hands when walking. They hugged her legs when she returned from meetings. They prayed simple prayers before bed. One night, little Somto looked up at her and said, "Mummy, you are our superhero." Amaka laughed through tears and pulled all 3 boys into a hug. But peace has a way of attracting envy, and one afternoon, That peace was tested. A woman from Lagos had seen Amaka at a product showcase and recognized her. By the next week, gossip had traveled back to the Okafor family. Mrs. Ngozi heard that Amaka was no longer struggling. Worse, she heard there were children, boys. She did not come with love. She came with entitlement. One morning, Amaka was at home with the boys when a black SUV pulled up outside. Mrs. Ngozi stepped out with 2 men and a lawyer. Her face was tight with anger and control. When Amaka saw her at the door, her body went cold. Mrs. Ngozi's eyes moved straight past her and landed on the triplets. For a second, even she was shaken by how much they looked like Chinedu. Then her expression hardened. "These are Okafor children," she said. "You will bring them to Lagos. You are not fit to raise them alone." Amaka's face drained of color. "No," she whispered. The boys, sensing tension, moved closer to her and held onto her wrapper. Mrs. Ngozi stepped forward again. "I said they belong to this family." That was when Amaka broke. She dropped to her knees, pulled her sons close, and cried with a pain that tore through the room. "Please," she begged, "you already took my marriage. Don't take my children too." Obinna began to cry softly. Kelechi buried his face in her shoulder. Somto clung to her arm, and just when it looked like the past had come to steal from her again, another voice cut through the tension. Cold, calm, powerful. "Madame, move away from those children." It was Chief Adenike. She stepped into the room with security behind her, her gaze fixed on Mrs. Ngozi, like judgment itself had arrived. And in that moment, Amaka knew one thing. This time she was not alone. Chief Adenike did not raise her voice. She did not need to. Power was already in her presence. She stepped fully into the room, elegant and unshaken, with 2 security men behind her and her lawyer just a step away. Her eyes rested on Mrs. Ngozi for only a second, but that second was enough to change the atmosphere. "Madam," she said again, calm and sharp, "move away from those children." Mrs. Ngozi straightened up, offended that anyone would dare speak to her that way. "Do you know who I am?" she snapped. Chief Adenike's face did not change. "Yes," she replied. "I know exactly who you are. That is why I am speaking carefully." The room went silent. Amaka was still on her knees, holding the boys close. Obinna clung to her shoulder. Somto pressed against her side. Kelechi held her hand tightly, confused and afraid, but still completely childlike, doing nothing more than seeking comfort from his mother. Chief Adenike looked at the lawyer Mrs. Ngozi had brought. "If anyone here attempts to threaten this woman again," she said, "my legal team will respond immediately. If anyone tries to remove these children without due process, the police will be involved." Mrs. Ngozi's confidence shook. "You cannot speak to me like that," she said, though her voice had lost some of its force. Chief Adenike stepped closer. "And you cannot terrorize a mother in her own home." That was the end of it, at least for that day. Mrs. Ngozi glared at Amaka one last time, then turned sharply and walked out. The men followed, the lawyer followed, the black SUV drove away, and only then did Amaka allow herself to breathe. She sat on the floor, gathering the boys into her arms, crying quietly as she kissed their heads. "It's okay," she whispered. "Mummy is here. Nobody will take you." That night, after the children were asleep, Chief Adenike sat with Amaka on the veranda. The air was cool, the house was quiet, but Amaka's heart was still shaking. "She won't stop," Amaka said softly. "People like that don't stop." Chief Adenike nodded. "No," she said. "They don't. But you are not the woman they pushed into the rain anymore." Amaka looked down at her hands, and for the first time, she truly believed it. Days passed, then weeks, and then, one afternoon, the past came knocking again. A courier arrived with a cream-colored envelope. The moment Amaka saw the handwriting, something inside her tightened. She opened it slowly. Inside was a luxury wedding invitation. Chinedu Okafor and Beverly Akinyemi. Her face went still. Then a note slipped out. She unfolded it with trembling fingers. Come and witness what you lost. For a long moment, Amaka said nothing. She just stared. The insult was not new, but the arrogance in it, the pride, the cruelty, it brought back everything. The church shame, the rain, the gates slamming behind her, the hospital bed, the lonely tears. Her fingers began to shake. She sat down slowly before her knees could fail her. Just then, the boys ran into the sitting room after their afternoon lesson, laughing and talking over one another. "Mummy," Kelechi called, "see my drawing." But then Obinna noticed her face. He stopped. His small voice softened. "Mummy, why are you sad?" Amaka quickly wiped her eyes. She forced a smile, though it was weak. "It's nothing, my loves," she said gently. Somto came closer and touched her arm. "Did somebody make you cry?" That simple question nearly broke her. Children always know, maybe not the details, but they know pain when they see it on the face they love most. Amaka pulled them close and hugged them tightly. "No matter what happens," she whispered, "Mummy is okay." That evening, after putting the boys to bed and praying over them, Amaka took the invitation and went straight to Chief Adenike. She placed it on the table between them. Chief Adenike read the note once, then her eyes hardened. "They want to shame you," she said. Amaka lowered her gaze. "I don't want trouble. I don't want to go near them again." Chief Adenike leaned back slowly. "This is no longer about trouble," she said. "This is about truth." Amaka was silent. Chief Adenike looked at her with deep seriousness. "For years they believed you were broken. They believed they buried your name. They believed they could humiliate you and move on." She pushed the invitation back toward Amaka. "Let them think so." Amaka frowned slightly. Chief Adenike's voice dropped, steady and powerful. "You will go to that wedding." Amaka looked up in shock. "What?" "Yes," Chief Adenike said. "You will go. Not as the woman they threw away, not as the wife they mocked. You will go as living proof that God can raise the rejected." Amaka's breathing changed. Fear was still there, but now something else entered with it. Courage. And that was the night the plan was made. Not for revenge, for revelation. Because at that wedding, the truth was finally going to land, and it would not arrive quietly. The morning of the wedding arrived with noise, not ordinary noise, the kind of noise that follows wealth, pride, and people who think money can hide wickedness. From early morning, the beachfront venue in Victoria Island was already alive. Luxury cars rolled in one after another. Men in expensive suits adjusted their cuffs. Women in glittering gowns took photos before even greeting the couple. Influencers angled their phones. Bloggers whispered. Even the decorators were moving faster than usual, because everybody knew this was not just a wedding. It was a spectacle. Stay till the end. Because before the vows could begin, heaven was about to interrupt the program. Inside the bridal suite, Beverly Akinyemi sat like a queen on a velvet chair, while makeup artists touched up her face. "Today is my day," she said, smiling at her reflection. "After today, nobody will even remember that village woman." Her friends laughed. One of them asked, "Do you think she will actually come?" Beverly's smile turned sharp. "She will come," she said. "Women like that always come when they still have feelings. Let her come and cry. Let her come and see what class looks like." Across the hall, Chinedu Okafor stood with his groomsmen, proud and relaxed, soaking in the attention like a man who believed he had won at life. His friends kept joking. "So where is the famous ex-wife? Hope she won't faint when she sees this venue." Chinedu smirked and adjusted his watch. "She will come," he said. "And when she does, she will understand one thing." "What?" "That she lost." The men laughed loudly, and nearby, Mrs. Ngozi Okafor sat with older women from the family, her guile high, her pride even higher. She leaned toward one of them and said, "We removed bad luck from this family. Today is a new beginning." She said it with confidence. She said it without fear, because she still believed Amaka was the same woman they pushed into the rain. But far from the laughter, in a private helipad lounge on the outskirts of Lagos, Amaka sat quietly in a soft gold gown. Elegant, modest, composed. Her makeup was light, her hands were steady, but inside her heart was beating hard, not because she wanted revenge, because she knew truth changes everything. Beside her stood Chief Adenike Balogun, regal and calm as always, and near them the three boys, Obina, Somto, and Kalechi, stood neatly dressed in matching cream outfits, their little shoes polished, their hair brushed, their faces innocent and curious. They were doing exactly what children should do, holding hands, staying close, looking up at their mother for reassurance. Nothing more, nothing less. "Mummy," Kalechi asked softly, "are we going to a party?" Amaka bent down and smiled gently. "Yes, my love," she said, "but you must stay close to me, okay?" The boys nodded together. Chief Adenike looked at them, then at Amaka. "Are you ready?" Amaka took a slow breath. 3 years ago, she had left Lagos with one suitcase and a broken heart. Today, she was returning with dignity, truth, and the evidence of everything they tried to erase. She rose to her feet. "Yes," she said, quietly, "I am ready." Minutes later, back at the venue, the officiating pastor was preparing his notes. The music had already started. Guests were settling down. Phones were out. The bridal train was lining up. Then it happened. A loud sound filled the sky. At first, people frowned. Then heads turned. Then voices rose. "What is that?" "Is that a helicopter?" The music faltered. Guests stood up. Cameras swung away from the altar and toward the open sky. Even the ushers lost focus. Above the venue, a helicopter hovered. The blades cut through the air like an announcement nobody could ignore. Panic mixed with excitement. Bloggers began recording immediately. "Who is coming in a helicopter?" Inside the hall, Beverly stood up so fast her chair shifted. Chinedu stepped forward, confusion crossing his face. Mrs. Ngozi's smile faded. The helicopter descended slowly and landed at the designated clearing near the venue, the wind from its blades stirring clothes, veils, and table runners. Security rushed toward the landing area. Guests stretched their necks. Phones rose higher, and then the door opened. First, a polished shoe touched the ground, then the hem of a gold gown. Then Amaka stepped out, calm, straight-backed, beautiful in a quiet, undeniable way. Not broken, not ashamed, not trembling. The crowd gasped. "Is that Amaka?" No, it can't be. But it was. And behind her, holding hands and staying close, came the 3 little boys. Triplets, neat, safe, innocent, walking beside the adults exactly as children should. Whispers exploded through the crowd. "Who are those children?" "They look—" No one finished the sentence, because at that same moment, Chief Adenike Balogun stepped out of the helicopter too, elegant and commanding, and the entire venue fell into a stunned silence. Chinedu's face changed first, then Mrs. Ngozi's, then Beverly's. Amaka began walking toward them, each step slow, steady, and full of the dignity they once tried to strip from her. And when she finally stopped in front of Chinedu, she looked him in the eye and spoke in a calm voice that cut through the silence. "You invited me," she said. "So I came." Then she placed a gentle hand on the boys' shoulders. "Boys," she said softly, "greet your father." And just like that, the wedding stopped being a celebration. It became Judgment Day. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. It was as if the entire wedding had forgotten how to breathe. Chinedu stood frozen, his eyes locked on the 3 little boys standing beside Amaka. The music had stopped. The pastor lowered his book. The guests stared openly now, their whispers rising like smoke through the venue. Because the truth was already visible. Those boys had Chinedu's face. Stay till the end. Because the wedding he planned as a humiliation was about to become the day his own heart was broken in public. Beverly was the first to react. "This is nonsense," she snapped, stepping forward in disbelief. "What kind of drama is this?" Her voice was loud, but it was shaking. She pointed at the boys with anger and panic written all over her face. "They are not his children. This woman is trying to ruin this wedding." The crowd murmured louder. Phones were no longer recording a glamorous event. Now they were recording a scandal. Mrs. Ngozi rose from her seat, but the confidence she had worn all morning was gone. Her face had lost color. Her lips parted, but no words came out at first. She looked from the boys to Amaka, then back to Chinedu. And when she saw the resemblance clearly, her knees weakened. She dropped back into her chair, clutching her wrapper tightly, her body trembling with shock. Chief Adenike stepped forward before the chaos could grow. Her voice was calm, but it carried authority. "There will be no shouting," she said. "There will only be truth." That sentence alone silenced half the room. She nodded to her lawyer, who stepped forward with a sealed file. Inside were medical records, pregnancy dates, clinic documents, and a clear timeline showing that Amaka had already been pregnant before Chinedu threw her out. A respected doctor, invited quietly by Chief Adenike as a witness, confirmed it with simple, careful words. "The dates are consistent," he said. "She was carrying these children during the final period of that marriage. No drama, no shouting, just facts, and facts can be more painful than insults." Chinedu's face changed completely. The pride was gone. The arrogance was gone. All that was left was shock, and something heavier, regret. He looked at Amaka like he was finally seeing the full weight of what he had done. His voice came out broken. "Amaka," he whispered, You suffered alone?" Amaka held his gaze, but her face remained calm. Not cold, not cruel, just calm in the way people become when pain has already done its worst. "Yes," she said quietly. "I suffered alone." The words landed hard. She turned slightly, enough for the crowd to hear her, but not like a woman chasing revenge, like a woman telling the truth after years of silence. "You called me barren," she said. "You let me be shamed in church. You watched your mother throw me out in the rain. I tried to tell you. I tried, but you had already decided I was nothing." Tears filled some eyes in the audience. Even people who came for gossip were no longer smiling. Amaka continued, her voice trembling only once. "I left with shame. I carried these children with fear. I nearly broke, but God did not abandon me." At that moment, little Kelechi tugged gently at her hand and looked up with innocent confusion. "Mummy," he asked softly, "why is everybody shouting?" That simple question broke something in the room. A few guests wiped their eyes. Chinedu looked at the child, then at the other 2 boys, and his face crumpled. The reality was no longer a rumor. It was standing in front of him in 3 small, innocent bodies. He dropped to his knees, not because anyone forced him, because regret finally humbled him. "I didn't know," he said, tears forming. "Amaka, I didn't know. Beverly stared at him in horror. Chinedu, stand up, she hissed. Don't do this here. But it was too late. Her perfect wedding was already gone. Her image cracked right there in front of the cameras, the guests, the families, and the same society she used to mock others. People were whispering now, but not about Amaka. They were whispering about Beverly, about Mrs. Ngozi, about the cruelty, about the shame. Amaka looked at Chinedu for a long moment. Then she spoke the final words he deserved to hear. You did not lose me when you divorced me, she said. You lost me when you refused to protect me. Silence, deep silence. Then she turned away. No fighting, no chaos, no revenge. She simply gathered her boys close. Chief Adenike stood beside her. Together they began to walk away from the altar, from the broken wedding, from the people who once thought she would return in shame. But she did not leave in shame. She left in honor. And as the guests watched her go, one truth remained hanging over that ruined ceremony, like judgment itself. God can turn rejection into restoration. And sometimes, the woman they tried to disgrace becomes the one nobody can ignore. What happened here is a reminder that life can change in a single moment. The people who mocked Amaka believed her story was over. They thought pain was the end for her. But they were wrong. This chapter teaches a simple truth. Never look down on anyone because of their present condition. Pride can make people cruel, but faith, patience, and perseverance can turn rejection into honor. Now I want to hear from you. Which character touched you the most in this part of the story? Was it Amaka, who carried pain with quiet strength? Was it Chief Adenike, who stood up when nobody else would? Or are you watching Chinedu, wondering if a broken man can ever make things right? Share your thoughts in the comments. I really want to know who stood out to you and why. And if this story moved you, let me know if you want part 2. Just type part 2 in the comments because what happens after this wedding shock may change everything. If you want to catch the next part the moment it drops, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications, because this story is not over yet.